to his beautiful children as she prepares to pass. These are the children and grandchildren of Norman and Brucella Wiggins Jordan.
In the little coal mining town of Instead, West Virginia. At the age of 13, his family moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where Norman attended Cleveland Public Schools. He later served 4 years in the United States Navy, and about 35 years ago, he moved back to West Virginia with his wife and children, then earned a bachelor's degree in theater from West Virginia University and a master's degree in African American Studies from Ohio State University. He utilized those degrees in positions working for the West Virginia Department of Culture and History, the West Virginia Humanities Council, the London, West Virginia Community Center, where he was director, and as African American literature instructor at West Virginia University and Glenville State College. Norman Jordan is an internationally acclaimed poet and playwright who is most associated with the Black arts movement of the 1960s and 1970s. He is the author of 5 books of poetry, the most recent being entitled Sing Me Different, in which he introduced a new form of poetry called stick poetry. His poetry has been anthologized in over 40 literary anthologies. His play, In the Last Days, has been performed at numerous venues, such as the famed Caramel House Theater in Cleveland, the Peachtree Playhouse in Atlanta, and off-Broadway. He is the recipient of many awards, including the United Nations Playwrights Award and the Martin Luther King Living the Dream Award. He is the founder and CFO of the African American Arts and Heritage Academy for Teenagers that has been in existence for over 30 years. For 12 years, he portrayed Dr. Carter G. Woodson as a History Alive presenter for the West Virginia Humanities Council. And in 1991, to collect, preserve, and exhibit the African American history of West Virginia, he co-founded the African American Heritage Family Tree Museum in Anstead, West Virginia. Norman enjoyed life. He was an easygoing, happy person. He had an extremely creative mind and spirit, a way of thinking outside of the box and seeing things in ways that most of us do not. When he was about 11 years old, he contracted rheumatic fever, which caused him to have a homebound teacher because he wasn't strong enough to walk up the hill to school. His homebound teacher's name was Mrs. Childs, and she was particularly adept at interweaving literature into the daily lesson plans and introducing Norman to an array of poets and poems. So, reciting poems such as Langston Hughes's Mother to Son, Longfellow's Wreck of the Hesperus, and Foss's The House by the Side of the Road were regular classroom activities. Also, going to church as a young boy was another source of exposure to poetry. He often spoke fondly of church programs where he vividly recalled hearing the poetry of Paul Laurence Dunbar recited by church members. Those experiences in class and in church were inspirations to him. It made his imagination soar and caused him to begin to write his own poetry. His very first poems were written during this time period, and it was the beginning of a lifelong romance with poetic expression and other forms of creative writing. Although Norman Jordan was involved in many different activities, he was first and foremost a poet. One of Norman's poems is entitled How to Sprout a Poem. The title of the poem and the poem itself, to me, is a metaphor for the act of word crafting that Norman mastered. And I'll end by reading this poem. How to Sprout a Poem. First, place about 7 tablespoons of words in a jar. Cover the words with liquid ideas and let soak overnight. The following morning, pour off the old ideas and rinse the words with fresh thoughts. Tilt the jar upside down in a corner and let it drain. Continue daily until a poem forms. Last, place the poem in the sunlight so that it can take on the color